Hello, Julian Schwartz with JJW Productions, and this is a 2004 Chevy Malibu. Now, I'm borrowing this car from my cousin while I'm visiting her, and to be honest, it's actually a pretty cool car. Now, a little bit of history about the Malibu. It first started out in the 1960s as a trim level of the Chevy Chevelle. Then in 1978, GM decided to make it its own model, which it kept until 1983. Then in 1997, GM kind of brought back the Malibu as a sort of mid-sized compact sedan, and then that lasted until about 2004 when it was redesigned into this model right here.
Another interesting note, when the Malibu was redesigned in 2004 until 2008, Chevy actually had two different versions of the Malibu. The regular sedan, which my cousin owns, which had a regular trunk, as well as a hatchback version called the Chevy Malibu Max. It featured a hatchback-style trunk as opposed to a regular trunk and had a little bit different of a configuration on the rear end. Now, an interesting note, the Chevy Malibu was the only Chevy model that actually had these two configurations, sedan and hatchback.
Now, as I said, this is a 2004 Chevy Malibu, and this is actually the first model year of this design, so it's kind of interesting on that. And it actually has some really cool looks to it as well that it utilizes.
One of those looks was actually at the front end. From 2004 until 2006, the Malibu had a chrome bar that actually went across the whole front end right in the middle, making it look similar to GM's truck lineup at that time. 2006, Chevy redesigned it and used a smaller grille. Another area that they utilize a chrome bar is actually on the trunk. It literally goes right across the trunk, and it's actually very symmetrical compared to other cars that utilize some kind of a trunk piece in which it lines up with the reverse lights. Now, this feature is actually not only on the Chevy Malibu sedan, but it is also on the Chevy Malibu Max, where it goes right across the trunk. And then the other Chevy car that utilizes it is actually the Impala. Now, the Impala, some of them come with it, some with them don't. But it's really cool that Chevy utilizes a chrome bar on the trunk and that they were able to keep it symmetrical, unlike other cars that have utilized a chrome bar and just does not work.
Now, another interesting look on this car. Now, you can see at the front, the Chevy badge is actually black in color. Usually on the Malibus, they are gold. Now, the reason that this one has a black badge instead of gold, a couple winters ago, my cousin was in a car accident. It was winter, there was ice in the road, and being winter and ice, it's kind of hard to control. So they actually had to fix the bumper, the fender, as well as the grille. So whenever they replaced everything, they got a black badge instead of the gold. Now, regarding the trim level on this Malibu, this is the LS, which is the mid-level trim of the Chevy Malibus. Now, some of the things that the mid-level trim got you get a power driver's seat, you actually get pedal adjusters as well, which is pretty cool. You get a spoiler on the trunk, and you also get a sunroof. Now, all these are pretty luxury considering it's a Chevy, so it's pretty cool that it gets all that. Now, the interior of the Malibu has some pretty cool features and some interesting looks to it as well. Now, one of the cooler things is actually the gear shift lever. Now, whenever I first got into it, I saw it had a plus and minus button on the left-hand side, and usually you see these when you have a way to shift into a manual mode on an automatic car. Now, one of the things that this car doesn't have is actually a setting for that. However, if you shift it all the way into low gear, then you can use those to shift between the gears. Pretty cool. Now, another cool feature that this car has, which is actually kind of surprising for it being a Chevy Malibu of all things, is actually pedal adjusters. Usually you see these on more higher end cars or even like higher trim cars, and to have it in a Chevy Malibu of all things is just surprising. Mostly because the Chevy Malibu is something that you wouldn't expect to be high-end or high luxury. Now, something that my cousin actually put in this car as an aftermarket, she actually put in an aftermarket radio. Now, the reason for this, GM at the time in 2004, they were kind of phasing out the cassette tape controls, and in the Chevy Malibu, you didn't get the auxiliary port with it. So the only thing that she could use in this car was the AM/FM radio and the CD player. So she wanted to have Bluetooth on her phone. She also wanted a way to listen to music through the auxiliary port. So went and got an aftermarket Bluetooth radio. Now, one of the biggest issues with this car and the interior itself is actually the steering wheel. Now, you don't get anything on this steering wheel. You get even less than what you would usually have. All you have is the cruise control, which is you can turn on the left side, and then you adjust it with the right side. This is probably one of the barest steering wheels that I have seen in a car to date. So it's kind of not that great. Now, one of the only downsides of the Chevy Malibu, like most other GM sedans, this car is a front-wheel drive car. And when living in Pennsylvania, front-wheel drive isn't exactly the best, but GM isn't exactly known for making all-wheel drive sedans. If you want an all-wheel drive, you kind of have to get an SUV for the GM class. So, kind of a downside, but it's what you get. And that is the 2004 Chevy Malibu. Like I said, it has some very unique styling with the chrome pieces at the front and also on the trunk. It's kind of cool that it has some more luxury options, like the seat adjusters, and also the way that you open the trunk is pretty cool as well. But other than that, being a front-wheel drive car and the lack of buttons on the steering wheel are surprising. So, some downsides, but you get used to them. So, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button down below. If you have not done so already, please hit that subscribe button as well to stay updated on my channel to see future reviews as well as my past car reviews. Until next time, I'm Julian Schwartz. Take care.